This episode is brought to you by Facebook. So you were scrolling on Marketplace, and there it was, the bike you'd been searching for. You sent a message, and it turned out the seller was super chatty, kind of funny, and an avid cyclist. The next thing you know, you're in a cycling crew. Well, a community cycling group. The thing about Facebook, you might find more than what you're looking for. From a browse to a bike ride, this summer find more on Facebook.
Hey friends, Olivia from Ollie. Between new routines and the ultimate group project known as parenting, you need science-backed solutions that work with your life. That's where Ollie comes in. Start your mornings off right with multis made to support nutrition and immune health. Choose from our lineup of gut-supporting probiotics, and we've got occasional sleep support to help the whole fam chase their big dreams. Head back to class with the #1 gummy supplement brand. Stock up on ollie.com today. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Welcome to The Best Worst. That is a show, and it's a celebration of the best and worst of the television we love.
Hi, my name is Meg Vashwiner.
And I'm Joseph Fink.
And we love TV. So we created the show to explore what we all love about popular TV shows by watching both the IMDb viewer best rated and worst rated episodes of a quintessential series.
Because, I don't know, TV, it has gone through a lot of different forms. The TV that is now is very different from the TV of the 90s, that is very different from the TV of the 50s. And we thought this would be an interesting way to explore that transformation.
And the TV of the future.
The TV of the future that we'll also be watching. That's on our Patreon exclusive, The Futurist.
The Futurist.
Tell us about the rules.
So the rules we have for this show called The Best Worst is that we only watch shows that have at least 100 episodes, and we exclude premieres or finales because those tend to have inflated ratings, and we are looking to watch the television show at its absolute best, not at its most important or cliffhangery. Let us get to today's show.
And that is Seinfeld, which ran for 9 seasons, 172 episodes from 1989 to 1998. I think if you had me guess, I would have guessed it started in 93, so it started a little earlier than I thought.
Yeah, I guess people weren't really watching it when it first started, too. So
yeah, we'll get into this. The first season was only 5 episodes long, so it took a little bit to become a thing.
My experience of this, I watched it when it was on. I watched it in syndication. I watched the finale. I was very into Seinfeld.
I watched Seinfeld in the way that kind of everyone did, and that it was just on TV. I never liked it, though. I wasn't a fan. I never sought it out. We as a family watched the finale just because it was a cultural event, because this was back during the monoculture where even if you didn't like a show, it just was such an event that you had to watch the finale. And where I think most Seinfeld fans found it disappointing, to me, it just seemed like another episode, which is to say it didn't, I don't know, I didn't like it very much.
It was a disappointing finale. But then again, it's hard to end something that is about nothing, right?
Well, we'll get into this. I have thoughts on the whole show about nothing thing. But yeah, it is true that a pure sitcom, which this is, where it is not trying to tell a story. It is not trying to make its characters change. There's not a lot you can do with an ending because there's no there.
Exactly. So it's something that can never end because it is always existing.
Yeah.
But today we're not talking about the finale because we don't do that shit.
No, it's against the rules, and we just gave you the rules.
Today, the worst episode we're going to start with talking about is Season 3, Episode 4, The Dog.
The Dog, written by Larry David, creator of the show, and writer of the best episode, which we'll get to. I get the feeling there was maybe only a few people writing consistently on this show, so I think a lot of repeat writers. The Dog, Jerry Seinfeld, star of the show, is on an airplane with an annoying guy.
A drunk guy
who's also annoying. The drunk guy gets sick and has to be put in a hospital at an emergency landing in Chicago. And he asks Jerry to take his dog, who is in the hold, and have him at his apartment until he can get out of the hospital. And so that leads to Jerry having a dog, although we never see the dog, and the dog is just clearly a human crew member going woof woof right off of screen. There's presumably a B plot and a C plot, but they were so completely...
Yeah, Kramer's breaking up with his girlfriend, who's also horrible and off screen. There's a little bit of a parallel there.
Yeah, we see the breakup scene, and he's just talking directly at the camera.
Yeah. like the dog, the girlfriend is also horrible but unseen. And then the plot is that George and Elaine are supposed to go see a movie with Jerry, but they can't because of the dog. And then George and Elaine have to hang out, just the two of them. And it's awkward because they usually always hang out with Jerry. So
That's the plot I maybe found the most sociologically interesting.
yes.
It wasn't funny. None of this was funny. I will say that in the 3 episodes we watched for the show, you and I only had one moment that I think we both laughed out loud, or either of us. Like, I think there was one laugh in the entire moment, and it came in the best episode. Not a single laugh in this one. However, it is an interesting and true point that sometimes there are friends who are in like a group of friends and are perfectly fine being friends in that group of friends for years. And then you like have a one-on-one moment and it's kind of awkward because you've just never had a one-on-one hang. That's just never how the friendship has been structured. It's a sociologically interesting observation that Larry David is making there.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is interesting. I didn't find this episode unwatchable. I didn't find this episode like egregiously bad. I found it to be like sort of a serviceable episode of Seinfeld. I did not find it offensive in any way. What I liked about this episode is that, again, there is the off-screenness. So we've got the dog off screen, we've got Kramer's girlfriend off scene, and we've got like there's just minimal locations that they're using, and they really are building something out of nothing. Like it's a very small set. It's like a few locations here and there. It really is ensemble driven, actor driven, text driven. They do make something out of nothing, and I think that this is one of the episodes where they, of the many that they do that, where it's like an uncomplicated shot at it.
Yeah, personally, I found very little difference in quality between the worst, the best, and the middle. I think those were the correct ordering of those episodes, that this was the worst of the 3, but the difference wasn't vast. And you can see the writer's process even here in the worst, as you said. There's just a lot of like, let's find a little thing. Let's find a little thing like when you're in a group of friends and then you suddenly are having a one-on-one hang and realize you've never done that before. And let's just explore that for a little bit. Let's just like find a little social thing and poke at it.
There's also the thing with Kramer's girlfriend where he like says to the rest of the people that he wants to break up with his girlfriend because she's horrible. And they're all like, yeah, she's horrible. They say really awful things about her. Jerry says, I'm sorry that I can't believe no one's killed her yet. And then he doesn't end up breaking up with her and stays with her. And that is the sociological thing where it's like, if someone says they're going to break up with someone, you can't say shit about it until it actually happens or if they get back together, because you will always have said, can't believe no one has killed her yet. And you have to think about that at their wedding. And then there's a popular piece of Seinfeld stand-up comedy is talking about carrying around dogs' little poop bags.
There's some Seinfeld stand-up in here, as there usually was. I found the stuff about poop bags to be pretty good. I found the stand-up he was doing at the beginning, which I don't even remember what it was. I found it to be egregiously bad stand-up.
I need to remind you that the leash holder is out of poop bags, by the way.
Great. I'm glad you did that on mic.
I'm glad I did that on mic, and I think it's important that everyone knows that we need to refill the poop bags.
Do you know where the 100 replacement poop bags are?
I do.
Great.
But I just wanted to remind you before you take her on a walk. Anyway, so the piece of monologue from Jerry stand-up is saying that if aliens were watching this through a telescope, they would think that the dogs are the leaders because we're the ones carrying their poop.
Yeah, I found that joke to be pretty good. There was something about planes at the beginning, probably. I assume it was about planes, and it was just a very bad piece of comedy. Also, every time they cut to his audience, it's very awkward seeming. Mm-hmm. It's just like a group of people who are dressed very 90s and not seeming to have a very good time, presumably because they're extras who have been sitting on that set for a while watching a bunch of little stand-up bits. There's a point where Elaine is making an egg cream soda, which is just classic New York City stuff. She's using like an old school glass seltzer bottle, which is very funny. I don't know if those were common in the early 90s, but it just felt very old-fashioned. She is also correctly, if you make an egg cream soda, you have to use Fox's You Bet chocolate syrup, and she is using that. You never see the label, but I have had enough Fox's You Bet syrup that I recognized the bottle just from the shape of it and the consistency of the syrup. That does lead me to a thing with... So you mentioned the set was very small. The set was very small because there was a lot of trepidation among the network about if this show would work. There was the feeling that it was perhaps both too New York and too Jewish, which it is. It is funny that this kind of national hit came out of a very specifically New York and Jewish point of view. as a result, they did they did a test episode that they tested a lot. They also did only a 5-episode first season. And Jerry's apartment was built very small for that test episode. And I guess they just never rebuilt it. And so Jason Alexander would talk about, he found it wild that they never rebuilt it. He's like, that set was just not big enough.
Not big enough
to do a TV show.
Which is basically puts them in like just a handful of places where they can be like, that's why they're always doing something in the kitchen. Like there's a scene where Elaine's getting a drink out of the fridge, or she's making an egg cream, or they're like having bowls of cereal. Like there always is business happening in the kitchen because they have nowhere else to go. So that is why they are there. But yeah, it was Brandon Tartikoff who was the president of NBC at the time. He was the head of the entertainment division of NBC from 1981 to 1991. And he is the one who is credited with turning around NBC. NBC was coming in third, and Brandon Tartikoff brought it forward and was sort of like primal stage of must-see TV, was able to be birthed from the soil that Brandon Tartikoff fertilized with shows like The Cosby Show, Seinfeld, Cheers, Law and Order, Hill Street Blues, Golden Girls, Wings, Saved by the Bell, Fresh Prince. So these were shows that Brandon Tartikoff ushered onto the airwaves, and as a result, because of that content, was able to put NBC back on the map in order to get to the next generation of must-see TV that we land at eventually with Friends and ER and that Thursday night lineup that was really hitting hard. Yeah, he's the one who said it might be too Jewish and too New York, him being a New Yorker Jew. So
yeah, I mean, there's a thing where it's probably because, like, how is he supposed to tell if it doesn't work if you're not New York and Jewish? Because he was. And so it was just probably something he worried about. I was bringing up the Elaine making an egg cream partly because apparently Larry David rarely to almost never put stage directions in his scripts. It was just the text, which was really a problem for the actors. They just didn't know what to do. They were on this tiny set, and they were given these rapid fire dialogue exchanges and no real indication of what they should be doing during it. And kind of came down to they started to direct each other. They would kind of help each other in a scene figure out what would be a natural physical action to be doing during this. And so apparently it's possible one of the actors were like, what if Elaine was just making an egg cream soda during this whole scene?
Because they need something to do. So
I never bought the whole idea of a show about nothing. I never bought that that's what it is, because it does have characters and it does have story. Like, there's storylines. It's a show. I just never found that a very convincing slogan. There's another slogan they used, which to me is more convincing, which is no hugging, no lessons.
No hugging, no lessons, absolutely. But for me, how I define a show about nothing is that pretty much each episode is a standalone. There's not really any runners that are like pulling through. There's relationships that have runners to them, but there's not really plot that is like driving from episode to episode. It's not like, can't wait to see what happens next week on Seinfeld. Is he going to? Like, there's none of that. It is just like, well, are they going to talk about pasta salad next week, or are they going to talk about airplane bathrooms? Like, it's just...
Yeah, but it wasn't just them talking about it. There is storylines here. There's the guy, he's got his dog, and then the guy kind of disappears and he can't get a hold of him, and he's trying to like get this dog out of his house.
Yeah, I agree that there's storylines in this episode, but none of them are consequential. Like,
no.
Jerry does not have a dog in the next episode. Although I have to back up and say my favorite part about this episode is that the dog is named Farfel, which is an excellent name for a dog.
I thought was it Farfel or Farfalle?
Farfel.
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 Okay. I buy no lessons, no hugging. I think that's an interesting philosophy. It's coherent. It's interesting to me. It's putting a creative limitation on what you're doing. But maybe that's the reason I don't like Seinfeld is I have a similar problem, and we'll talk about when we get to it, with 30 Rock I struggled with, in that I think both Seinfeld and 30 Rock have talented performers, funny jokes, but both of them are just not at all concerned about character or story. Everything's there to set up the jokes. And I just need some character and story. I don't need lessons or hugging. One of our favorite sitcoms we absolutely love, we've watched it a few times all the way through, is Peep Show, which is a show about truly horrible people that you do not care about at all.
Only 38 episodes of Peep Show, guys, unfortunately. However, it probably ran for like 50 seasons because that is
how the British system works.
I wonder if we can come up with British rules.
Well, we can maybe do a season of like almosts.
38 is not almost.
Well,
It's British almost.
But like, even though they're horrible people and they never learn anything, there is this continuation of story and character that gives me something to hold on to. And with Seinfeld, it's just not there. And I just need that. The jokes aren't enough for me. And so that's, I think, the thing I always struggled with Seinfeld.
I did not struggle with it. I don't necessarily need that. I think the performances are so strong from Jason Alexander and from Julia Louis-Dreyfus that like they're really quite interesting to watch, and just watching them do so much with so little and be so physically dynamic in such a small confined space is just, it's so interesting. The two of them are like just great to watch.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So the network was, I think, very reasonably concerned about Jerry Seinfeld's ability to anchor a sitcom, his acting ability. I think that was a reasonable concern. I don't think he's a very good actor. So they wanted to surround him with very talented performers. They brought in Jason Alexander, who was like a Broadway guy. He was like kind of a ringer.
Just incredibly funny, Jason Alexander. Incredibly funny, incredibly huge range.
Yeah, not just funny. Like the thing was, he could act. He's like an actor.
And then again, I'll say it again, like very physically dynamic. Yeah, just really, really can command a space, command a scene. Like plays a want, like, which is really important for a show about nothing. These characters grab their wants and can play it all the way to the bank.
Yeah, and he apparently he started out thinking he was supposed to be kind of doing a Woody Allen, and then found out that the character is based on Larry David, and so just switched to a Larry David impression. And then Julia
Louis-Dreyfus. Well, for some reason, you can never get Julia Louis-Dreyfus's name.
There's just like a lot of clauses that are kind of similar. Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Yeah, I do struggle.
You're like Julie Louis-Dreyfus.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus was on SNL, and then was brought onto this show basically against Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David's wishes. Originally, the cast was just the three: Kramer, Jerry, and Jason Alexander. George. And the network, as a condition of bringing the show to air, forced them to write in a woman. And a lot of people auditioned. Megan Mullally.
Would have been great.
Yeah, she is, like, as we've seen later on with Veep, she is just an incredible comic talent. For me, she was the highlight of every episode.
To me, she was the highlight of every episode as well. Yeah, an incredible performer. So funny. Great face. Again, plays her want. Super strong. Really love the character of Elaine.
Yeah, I don't have strong feelings on the character, but as a like deliverer of jokes and funny moments, I find her to be an incredible performer.
Agreed. And then there's Kramer,
who
it's a big performance.
I don't think Michael Richards is very good. I don't think he is up to the par.
I think he's
of the rest of them.
I think he's really good at clown. I think he's incredible at clown. But so is Jason Alexander. So is Julie Louis-Dreyfus. Michael Richards is just clown.
Yeah, he just has the one thing.
Yes.
He has no range. It's just the one thing.
It's just clown. And which it's good clown. But like, we'll talk about this in the middle list. So we'll save that for that. But he has a clown bit in that's very, very well played. It's a unlikely ensemble, but ultimately a great ensemble, I think.
Yeah. I do think that if you put basically anyone else as the center, you probably have a better show. I think Jerry Seinfeld is not a charismatic performer. He's not a particularly funny performer.
He does a good job playing off of everyone else's crazy. He's like a decent straight man who loses it.
He's a decent straight man. Yeah. I do think that if you got like an actor to play that role, you have a stronger show.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's a good stand-up.
Yeah. When he has good material, I mean, it's hard coming up with stand-up for that many episodes. I do have sympathy for that it's not like crafting a stand-up special over the course of 2 years and having an hour. It's like having to come up with funny little 30-second bits twice an episode for 25 episodes a year. That's tricky.
But yeah, I think Seinfeld is a legendary stand-up. I think when we write the book, he will be definitely featured like in it. The book of greatest stand-ups of all time. He's definitely has a chapter. I
mean, as far as stand-ups who in their 30s dated a 17-year-old high schooler.
Almost
absolutely.
Almost in their 40s.
Yeah.
Dated a 17-year-old high schooler. A child.
Dated a child. So that's Jerry Seinfeld. Of course, Michael Richards later had his own racist fallout and then kind of disappeared from public life.
This is the controversy section.
But you know what? You know who hasn't had a controversy, as far as I know, is Julia Louis-Dreyfus, other than my inability to say her name. Have we discussed the worst?
I think we have discussed the worst. And from going forward, we'll include the controversy section in the worst. So
I guess, yeah, we should. I feel like the older the show, the more likely we're going to be hitting some controversy sections. Let's get...
Hi, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month, even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending, 0 tears. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
To that intermission, which is, how is that theme song?
I think it's good.
Yeah, it's barely there. I mean, it's iconic in that everyone knows the like boom, 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 but there's not. Let's get into this, which is, so it was composed by Jonathan Wolfe, who was a professional TV theme composer. That's what he did for a living. He was a jazz...
What a job. That definitely doesn't exist anymore as a job.
Yeah. He was a jazz musician, but then he started a company writing TV theme songs. He wrote the theme song to Will and Grace, to Married with Children, to King of Queens, to Reba. And he wrote, I say quote unquote, wrote the theme song. There isn't actually a theme song. So there is no bass. It's him on a synthesizer with a bass sound, also making some sounds with his mouth. And it is different every single episode. Every single episode, they would play the opening stand-up and he would improvise over it. And that would be the theme. But musically, it is different every episode.
Great. It does what it needs to do. It doesn't step on its own tail, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. I give it a 4 out of 10.
I give it a 7 out of 10.
Let's get to that best episode then. The best episode, I feel like listeners can probably guess. This is like, even as somebody who didn't pay attention to Seinfeld, I was very aware of this episode.
Yeah. It's season 4, episode 11, The Contest.
It's the masturbation one.
Yeah, but they would never say that.
No. And so I think that's why I, as a non-Seinfeld viewer, was aware of it, is people got really into like talking around it. They'd be like, oh, it's so naughty. It's like about masturbation, but we can say master of our domain instead. And it's like, because it's got master in it, it's kind of naughty. People got really into this one.
What this episode is about is George's mother gets walked in on. No, George's mother walks in on George jerking
It'd be a very different episode.
Right? I don't know. I'm into that one. Walks in on George, and then she's so upset. She gets hurt. She falls. She hurts her back. And then...
Well, so specifically, she is falling, and George has the decision to make. This was a funny bit, between putting away his penis or going to catch her. And he decides to put away his penis and let her fall.
Yep. Hey, it's an impossible choice there. And then, George comes to the Monk's coffee shop and tells them all about it. And they ultimately come down to a bet to see who can go the longest without masturbating. And they allow Elaine in for an additional buy-in because they think that women can, have a different situation there. So she has to pay $150 and the rest of them have to pay $100. So the episode begins. We have our stakes. We know what's going on here. The issue that they're all facing issues that make it difficult for them to abstain. There is a naked woman who Kramer and Jerry see across from their apartment that is just like really in Kramer's head with her nudity. Jerry is currently dating a virgin, so he's not having a sexual release
Played
there.
by Daphne from Frasier.
Wonderful. Marla, the virgin. Elaine Bennis is in an exercise class with JFK Jr., John, and he's like a little bit interested in her, and they have this sort of exchange there. And George is visiting his mother in the hospital and keeps happening upon being on the other side of a curtain for a sponge bath session between a nurse and a patient.
Well, he happens across it the first time, and then
Yes.
he starts visiting his mother at the time it happens every day.
And then the soldiers start falling.
Yeah. They each have their endings, which is Kramer. This was the part that made both of us laugh. It was the one audible laugh Seinfeld got out of both of us, which is at the end, they're looking at the naked woman's apartment and they're like, is that Kramer? And Kramer goes and sleeps with the naked lady. Elaine fails. Both Elaine and Jerry fail with their attempts at love. And instead, Marla the Virgin ends up getting with JFK Jr., and the final shot is her in bed with him, having finally lost her virginity to JFK Jr.
May he rest. And yeah, another great off-screen. I love that they're like, one of the many great things about this episode, but that they wrote John into the episode and is like, does lots of stuff. They have him in scenes, but he's just fully not there.
Yeah, he has a whole plot. There's an interesting thing between this So in the worst, we have a dog and a girlfriend that are both entirely off camera. With this one, we have the naked lady and JFK Jr. both entirely off camera, but major parts of the story. It is an interesting stylistic choice here that Seinfeld would regularly just put major story elements completely off camera.
I mean, the George Steinbrenner character was George's boss when he worked at the Yankees, and he was like, you never see him. And he's just played by Larry David's voice off screen. So
if I were a TV writer, I would think about that, about using the techniques of what can I just put completely off screen and just imply that it exists? Because Seinfeld did that successfully all the time.
They were great at it. It really worked. I think it's like a great little piece of theater.
Yeah, I mean, this is not quite as theatrical as I Love Lucy, where I Love Lucy was like on a stage. It felt very stagey. This feels a little closer to modern sitcoms. It feels like a TV set, not like a movie set. But it is still very theatrical in that whenever possible, they imply rather than show. They use kind of the theater magic of just having the dog be right off stage.
This episode was directed by Tom Sharonis, who directed a ton of Seinfeld. Just a ton of it. I think he directed The Dog as well.
Yeah, I checked the directors of these, and with each of them, I was like, oh, it's someone who just, directs lots of TV.
Basically, they have Seinfeld has two directors. There was one for like the first 6 seasons, I think, and that's Tom Sharonis, and then it became Robert Ackerman for the last ones.
Well, that reminds me, we kind of have gotten out of testing my theory. My theory, again, is that the best in, say, a 10-ish season TV show, the best will be between like seasons 3 to 6. And then the worst will be in either the first season or towards the end. The best here totally follows that at season 4. But the worst is in season 3, which is definitely weird for me. I feel like season 3 is often when a show is really hitting its stride.
Again, but the double-edged sword of they are producing so much television and they have to do a new one every week and they all can't be bangers.
Yeah, and as we discussed, the worst is not abysmal.
No.
It's just maybe slightly weaker.
Not unwatchable in any sense. I wouldn't, like, if it was syndicated and it was on in a hotel room, I would not notice that it was the worst episode of Seinfeld. Back to this episode's contest. Larry David won a Primetime Emmy for this episode for writing, won a WGA award for this episode.
This is, I think, our second show that the best and worst episodes were written by the same person. The first one I believe, Cheers. So it's kind of, I think, a sitcom thing. But yeah, Larry David, writer of both the worst and best user-rated episodes.
TV Guide ranked this episode number 1 on its list of top 100 episodes of all time.
Ridiculous. Stupid.
I think it's a good episode. Do I think it is the best episode of television of all time? I do not. But Seinfeld is so interesting because it is so formative. It really is like one of those first shows to enter postmodernism in TV, like to be acknowledging of itself, to be breaking a mold, to be doing something new.
Was it acknowledging of itself?
I think so. I think it was. There were definitely episodes where they're like, it's about nothing. They were receiving the feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I think the no lessons, no hugging gave them an edge that felt very new, very 90s. Like, we're going to do a sitcom that has no heart.
And no romance, really.
Yeah, Elaine and Jerry are exes, so there's like romance in the past. But
and there's a couple episodes where they are like friends with benefits, but other than that, like there is no... they're not chasing each other in any way. Jerry always has a revolving girlfriend. Kramer has the occasional revolving girlfriend. Elaine has her many boyfriends, and George eventually has the fiance, and then we all know what happens there.
I don't, because I didn't watch the series.
She dies, Joseph.
Oh no. R.I.P. that lady.
Susan.
Jerry has both a rotary phone and a cordless phone in his apartment, is a thing I noticed in this episode. Not sure why that set design choice was made.
Jerry's apartment has it going on. He's got really, really effectively using the space. He's got the little kitchenette area. He's got his bedroom off scene that we never really see. He's got an area to sit down and watch TV. He's got a dining table and a little computer area.
Yeah, I mean,
he's using that little apartment.
It's weirdly, because it's so small, it is maybe one of the more realistic New York apartment sets in that, unlike, Friends or How I Met Your Mother, where they're like these huge spaces with a million bedrooms. It really is just like a small living room kitchen and then a bedroom and a bathroom off of that. The person who played the cousin, Rachel Sweet, she just has a single scene with George at the hospital. She's also visiting George's mother. Rachel Sweet left acting very soon after this and became a successful sitcom writer and producer, and is still, I think, actively working on that side of things. So it's just interesting. She has a very small part in this. I think it was one of her very last roles because kind of starting around mid-90s, she left that side and found a lot of success on the writing side. This is also the first episode with George's mom.
And she is incredible. Legendary performance. Estelle Harris as Estelle Costanza.
So she became a recurring character, but this was her very first appearance. You know, she definitely is playing a type. She's playing nagging Jewish mom.
But it's so good.
Yeah, I guess.
Her delivery of every line to me is perfect.
Okay.
You think she's too, you find her anti-Semitic.
It's not, it's, you know, it's Larry David writing it, so it's not exactly anti-Semitic per se, but it is a very, I don't know, it just feels like a very hack idea of a Jewish mom. As somebody who has a Jewish mom, I find the idea of a Jewish mom as like nagging, guilt you all the time. Like it just feels, it's less that it feels offensive and more that it just feels lazy and hack to me to kind of go that shortcut route.
But we're going to go the shortcut route because it's a sitcom and she gets 2 scenes.
Yes, but maybe they deepened her character considerably as they went on. We kind of have stopped asking these questions, but I think they're worth thinking about. Like, what is this being the user best rated tell us about what people want out of the show?
Ensemble, for sure. Jokes, and then using writing to write around discussing sex. So it really is all very clever and stylized and funny without saying like, we have a bet, we're all not going to jerk it.
Yeah, I am a huge fan of limitations and rules in art. I think they make your art better. We were just recently working with someone on something and we were having a disagreement and they said that it felt like I was putting handcuffs on the project. And I said, yes, but I like handcuffs on a project. For me personally, having rules that make it more difficult, I think ultimately makes the end product better. And in this case, they had network standards. They were writing a story that they couldn't really tell on TV at the time. And so they had to find all sorts of ways to write around it. And I think, as you said, it just would not have been remotely as memorable an episode if it were on like current streamers and they were allowed to be like, all right, first one who jerks it loses. It just would have been less interesting.
Yeah. I think it's tight. I think it's funny. I think you were using all 4 characters. They're all going after the same thing. It's a firing on all cylinders situation.
Yeah, if Seinfeld is a pile of jokes, which I think it basically is, I think this is just a pile of better jokes than usual.
Yeah.
Now that we've seen these episodes again, has your feelings about Seinfeld changed at all?
I guess they have a little bit, because when I watched it growing up, I was like, this is perfect television. These jokes are incredible. This is the best show. This is the best comedy ever done on TV. And then coming back and watching it again, I can see it for what this often happens a lot. I can see it for what it is. I can recognize the value of its time. But to me, I no longer think that this is the best comedy of all time.
Yeah, I would say I've gone the other direction in that I really didn't like Seinfeld and I kind of was super negative. I would say reactionary to how much other people loved it. I have a grudging respect for it now. I can see why it got the response it did. I still don't like it. I still did not enjoy my time watching it. That hasn't really changed. I just have a little more respect for, I guess, the technical side of what they were pulling off.
Yeah, I like it. I find it exceptional. Again, I think it has its place just as Jerry Seinfeld has his place. I think
at a 17-year-old's prom.
Picking her up from high school. I think that the Seinfeld definitely has a place in greatest TV shows of all time, greatest comedies of all time, greatest ensembles of all time.
My answer to this is obvious, but if I was like, hey, let's watch Seinfeld all the way through, what would you feel about that?
I don't know if I could go for it all. It depends on how much time I had. Like, am I recovering? Are both my legs broken? Like, do I have nothing else going on in my life? Then I probably be like, yeah, sure, I can watch like 5 episodes of Seinfeld a day. That's fine. But like, given what the space of my life looks like right now and the amount of time I have for free time and for entertainment, I don't think I would spend that token on watching every episode of Seinfeld again.
I also feel, because we watched all 3 of these in the same night.
And then, I
you
had to
fell
go back
asleep.
and watch The Middleist.
So you had to rewatch The Middleist.
Again, I don't have a ton of time to watch stuff. I'm very tired.
We're working parents. It's hard. And our daughter has been waking us up a lot during the night. And I feel like that was maybe a mistake. I think Seinfeld benefited a lot from being weekly because watching all 3 in a row, they became very repetitive because it doesn't have plot or character and it's just a series of situations. And it's just, I think that was on us. I think it would have been a more enjoyable experience watched weekly rather than binging it.
Yeah. I will say watching The Middleist 2 times, I enjoyed it more the second time. I was awake, but...
Yeah, you passed out pretty early in that. You also fell asleep at a theater production that we went to this week. So it's just been a week for that. Listen, we have been woken up by a 3.5-year-old pretty regularly. Speaking of which, check out our Patreon-only show, The Middleist, where we will be discussing the exact Middleist-rated episode to see what the show looks like when everything is exactly average. And that episode is...
Season 6, episode 15, The Beard. We will see you there.
And we'll also do The Littlest, where we discuss, would we show this to our daughter, 3.5 years old, waking us up a lot at night, or and would she enjoy it if we did? I mean, who knows? She is Jewish. She was born in New York.
Save it for the paywall, baby.
All right. And we also forgot to pick a next show, so that will be revealed on The Middleist. So you'll have to be a Patreon member to find out our next show and or wait 2 weeks. Sometimes we hum along with the theme song, but it's a little harder.